Hey there, this is Patrick with Dallas Hockey Hangout, coming to you after a Stars 5-4 win over the Minnesota Wild. And I'm a little raspy from the game last night. If you saw it, you might understand why. It's particularly fight-filled, very exciting, certainly one of the best games of the year, like by far, from an entertainment standpoint. Consecutive multi-goal erase. How do you use that? Multi-goal deficits erased in the past two games. They come back in dramatic fashion against the Wild, and I mean, yes, they haven't been playing the best lately, but I mean, they're important wins regardless. Against Calgary, I mean, they were not playing well, and it took a really good third period for them to kind of pull it out of their butts. But in this game against Minnesota, it was back and forth. But yeah, I'm kind of struggling for my words this morning because this game had a lot of storylines. It wasn't just the goals, it wasn't just the fights. There's just so much going on here, and it's for lack of a better term, pretty juicy. I think I'm going to start with like all the extraneous stuff first, and because that's kind of been what's been on my mind. And first off, I don't think you can talk about this game and not talk about the fact that Miro Heiskanen was injured. I'm not surprised. I think anyone that follows the pod knows that I mentioned that Ryan Hartman was probably due to do some line stepping things. He's a habitual line stepper is what he is. There's the line. He habitually steps over it. He's lost credibility with me, Ryan Hartman, to believe that. I mean, yeah, it looked like a normal check, but I mean, he's got like his legs and stick kind of in a weird position against Miro, and then he's using his hand to kind of, finish the check and push him over. It's not like he took a run on him like Mark Stone, but I mean, considering who it is, I'm sure that there's an aspect of nefarious levels going on there. And obviously they know that this is the playoff matchup. I don't think that's lost on anyone. I think the like fights and scrum would suggest that both these teams know it's going to be a long series. You had the classic fight after a goal, which was so funny to watch Blackwell score and then like accidentally run into Nick Foligno. And, I think it was an accident. He's just not paying attention. Blackwell's all hyped. And then Foligno sees Blackwell push him back. And I was like, well, I guess I have to fight him or get into it with him. So I have way more respect for Nick. And obviously, like, given the like nature of the game, that didn't surprise me that it turned into a full-on melee. But it was just funny how it developed just based off of, what was a misunderstanding. It's not even like Blackwell went over and is trying to cause something, but still, you don't get a fight right after a goal pretty often. That was pretty electrifying. Honestly, I lost track. There must have been at least like 5 full-on scrums. Now, the other side of those was the penalties. I think I'm wearing my fan shirt today, but obviously I still, am trying to preserve that journalistic viewpoint. And, it was hard not to see some sort of bias from the refs. Like I know that they're not, Eric Furlat and TJ Luxmore. I know that they're not out against Dallas. Like, I get that. I'm not saying that. But with how the penalties were doled out, it seemed very clear to me that they were not realizing that Minnesota, I don't know, it sounds like a child. It's like, he started it. Ugh. It's like, well, yes. Like, all right, the one that comes to mind is that one at the end of the game when Rantanen is up along the boards by the benches. Hughes knows that if Rantanen gets past him, that it's probably, Church and an empty netter. And so he gets past him and then he like basically like bear hugs him and tackles him. And then, that's an even up call. Granted, the game is already out of, it's almost over and they're just trying to keep a lid on it, make sure no one dies. There didn't seem to be the like respect, intelligence from the refs. It's obvious who kind of is the aggressor and the one trying to pull, the other team offsides, so to speak. So like, it seemed pretty clear to me that was not handled the best by the refs. I know it's not like this every game. Had some Minnesota fans in my mentions saying as though they felt that's happened against them previously in these Stars games. But I mean, just calling it like I see it, Minnesota has always, there's a Ben sighting right there. Minnesota has always pushed the envelope and run around. Minnesota's been in penalty trouble, and I think under head coach John Hines now, he's cut that down, and I think you're seeing a better performing team. I couldn't tell you off the top. I got to Google the coach before Hines, Dean Evison. Man, I gotta say, I don't think Evison was. I mean, he had a pretty good win percentage in the regular season. Obviously, didn't do well in the playoffs. You lose to Dallas. But that said, like, he didn't seem to have the best control over that team. I genuinely thought they were a dirty team under him. So it is what it is. I am now fulfilling my curiosity of seeing if he's still in the league, and I'm curious where he is at. So he was the coach fired by Columbus. That's right. Rick Bowness got him again. Man, how'd you like that? Get bested by Bowness again. Evison's probably not too happy about that. Anyways, I digress. I thought the refs did not handle it very well. I just thought that there were too many calls in which Minnesota was the aggressor, the habitual line stepper, and they were calling even up calls. And I just didn't understand that lots of times. There was another one, my memory's coming back to me. There was that one on Wyatt Johnston for interference. I did not understand that one because Spurgeon hits him with the elbow right as that's being called. And then previous to that, like literally a second before that, there was another penalty in which Minnesota like hauled down a Stars player and they just didn't call it. So they didn't call that penalty. And then it led to that weird play between Wyatt and Spurgeon elbows him, and somehow it's Wyatt that gets the penalty. So look, if any Minnesota fans are tuning into this one, I hope they are. I'm sorry about the loss, but moreover, it's going to be a great series. Like I hope that the fan bases can be cordial. I don't anticipate that. I won't be participating in any of that, obviously, but I know it's going to get nasty. And if you're just looking for a chuckle, go to my Twitter and check out some of my tweets and some of the responses and how some of these Minnesota fans do not like some of these Stars players, and some good trash talk in there. Obviously, they're pretty salty after their loss. Yeah, the penalties were tough. Losing Miro was a major damper on the game in the arena, especially as the news kind of circulating. He's not on the bench. He didn't come back after the first. And there's just shades of kind of what happened last year with him against Stone, and he's out. And then all of a sudden, there's just this cloud over the team because flat out, this team is not the same without Miro. And like, I'll go as far as to say, do I think they can win a Stanley Cup without Miro Heiskanen? I really don't. Like, I've just seen too many times of what his absence then leads to. Now, that said, if you were to ask me that question in front of the entire team, of course, I'm going to say, like, yes, I do believe that they could. But just from like an outsider's standpoint, if you're to ask anyone, if they play this series without Miro, who do they think will win? I think if you've been watching these two teams, I think I would give the edge to Minnesota if Miro did not play in the series. That said, this is the deepest team that the Stars have had in a long time. If there was a team to, do it without their best player, I'm not going to dance around that. I really do think Miro Heiskanen is the best player on the Stars. It would be this team. I do think that they have the offensive firepower. I mean, look what they did in this game against Minnesota without Ropehans, without Bunting, without Steele, without Foxa, like without Bastian, who's coming on. Like, I mean, there's 5 forwards out that like are going to be in the lineup if they're healthy. So, but then you have guys like Huru, who I'm just continue to be impressed with, especially with his faceoffs. Blackwell is playing amazing. Beck drove several of those plays against Minnesota. Ernie is almost scored and is showing the grit that you just love to see. Ben was being stashed down, I think, on the third line. They wouldn't take him out, but still, if those players come back, it's going to be really tough, some tough decisions to be made. So I'm looking forward to those players coming back so that we can really see what this team looks like. And then just before we get into how should we view this team, a couple like strategy things I was noting. Well, no, Miro, who's stepping up. Harley obviously stepped up. He did it last year. I thought he had an outstanding game. He was, +2 on the night, had an assist, 25 minutes, a minute on the power play, almost 2 on the shorthanded. Harley played amazing. And then you're seeing, this was before the mix-up of having to play with 5 defensemen the rest of the game, but I think Gulletson is seeing how Myers is playing with Harley. I liked Myers and Bischel together at times, but I thought overall they were too slow to play with each other. So I think Gulletson's still trying some things out in these last few games, and that's what they're for. So let's launch into it. I want to get this out. I know a little late today, so how should we be viewing this team? Well, it's as a team that won its biggest game of the season, not just because it's, there's only 3 games left. So technically the next game is the biggest game of the season. But yeah, Dallas had to have this one. I don't think anyone wanted to play Game 7 in Minnesota on the Stars, and I don't think any of the fans would have wanted that. Obviously, Minnesota knew what it would have meant to have a Game 7 in St. Paul, but Dallas is up by 4 with 3. I mean, it just takes one Minnesota loss or one Dallas win to secure that. So the home ice, I believe. So yeah, that was an impressive win. And, in the arena, there was just so much happening. I think a lot of people, especially given that Minnesota scored with 9 seconds left in the second, and they did that twice. They scored in the last 20 seconds of a period. Like, if you have that happen to you once, let alone twice, that's just typically not a recipe for success. You just typically don't win games when you give up goals in the last minute, or Dallas has been doing it lately, giving up goals in the first minute, and somehow that game against Calgary being a great example of how the Flames scored early in the third, and Dallas, that didn't seem to phase them. But yeah, I mean, the Stars have just found a way to win these games when they're down 2, and that's just so impressive considering, who they're without. I'm sure Minnesota's pretty salty in the locker room after this. So, it's just such an impressive win, especially given all the craziness that's happening. You lose Miro. I mean, I'm hoping that, I don't know, I said this when I first started the pod. I remember this was right after Sagan was hurt, and I remember saying, like, it didn't look that bad. And then sure enough, it's his ACL. I don't know, hearing Gulletson's comments saying that he would be out Saturday, but nothing after that. I don't know. Maybe that truly was like, that was a precautionary thing. Because like deep down, from here on out, these games don't matter really. Maybe I'm taking some optimism from his comments, and that he didn't totally say, oh, he's going to be out a couple of weeks, or we're not sure about the playoffs, which he did sort of say. But I don't know. I'm choosing to remain optimistic, and hopefully he can come back in this next playoff series. And it sucks because like when you see him hurt last year after Stone's ridiculous hit, and he comes back, you can see that Miro, without that like top stride, that top speed, he's not the same player. He's still great, just not the same player. So I hope that this is not too serious and this affects his mobility, because losing him, that will be tough. So I'll just get into the game recap, and we'll call it. So because obviously there's a lot going on. So the first Stars, start the game off with another first goal, and it's not a recipe for success falling behind, but scoring first is a nice trend Dallas is picking up lately. So first goal, bookending Wyatt Johnston hands goals from the OT winner against Calgary to this first one against Minnesota. It was a turnover behind the net, and Wyatt's able to just get it short side and on net before Gustafson could slide his pad over to the post. So kind of just like a nothing out of nothing goal, but you got to be in the right place to score, right? Wyatt's right where he needs to be, right by the net. It's a good start. And then obviously the rest of the period did not go well for the Stars. So that first goal, man, that was good by, I'm for the whatever people that watched last time, and circle Hughes up on the board again. I'm going to do it again for posterity's sake. We got to do it. We got to circle Quinn Hughes on the board. We're going to put him in red this time. As the series moves forward, look out for that guy, because he was the best Minnesota player on the ice, I thought, of this game. Kaprizov certainly was good, but so Hughes gets that pass to the blue line from Zuccarello, and he's coming down as a left shot on the right side So he's got a good angle at it, and he's just able to put one past Ottinger for his 7th. He's just been doling out the assists this year. 7 is, I don't know, if you didn't know that, you would assume that one of the best players, defensemen in the league, would have double-digit goals, but he's worried about passing the puck, and rightfully so, because, he had several other awesome passes later in the game that set up goals. So the second one for Kaprizov was tough because, it's hopping over Essa's stick right there, and, Kaprizov is able to, get it on net. That was tough. And the fact that the Wild were so dominant on the power play was tough. I think, Blackwell called them quote unquote trash after the game. I wouldn't go that far, but you give up, that's not a recipe for success. You can't give up 3 power play goals to the Wild and expect to win playoff games. So I'm sure Dallas will have its playoff opportunities, or I'm sure it's power play opportunities. They're going to make the most of theirs. But, for how good Dallas can be on the power play, they gave up too many passes through the trapezoid. And I thought, obviously, that was not marking players as they're cutting to the net. One of the ones later in the game, you can see just Lyubushkin's just not tying up his guys. He's head of the net. I believe that was Hartman goal. So yeah, we'll have to have a conversation about Lyubushkin a little later. But Minnesota takes the lead on the power play with 16 seconds left in the first. That was a gut punch. Miro's injured. It's not really hitting me until I'm seeing that he's not coming back out in the second. And yeah, that was tough. And then just that lull comes over the game. Dallas is all of a sudden losing. Miro's out, and then Minnesota makes it 3-1. Like, given what this game meant, if you were to tell me that Minnesota had a 3-1 lead midway through the second, I would have been thinking they would have held on to it. They're a great defensive team, 4th best defensive team in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Which, just as an aside, seeing some reactions, I'm sure it's the vocal minority, but it seemed like Wild fans, they were not happy with Gustafsson's performance, and they don't seem to be happy with him overall this year. His stats seem fine, and he's been the number 1 guy. I know Wallstedt is a capable guy and is also great, but the idea that they were ready to bail on him for the playoffs is a little surprising. He's played against Dallas in the playoffs before and played well. So I would expect them to stick with him. But if he had in a game like this, if this was a game 1 or a game 2 of the series, I could see Minnesota going to Wallstedt after that. I also want to note that while Ottinger didn't have the best statistical game, 27 saves on 31 shots, I thought he had to make the way harder saves in this game. I thought Minnesota did such a good job getting into the zone on like a 3-on-2, just changing the point of the attack and getting the puck on net. I thought those plays I thought he was just tested much better this game, and I thought he played really well. So, if that's the type of Ottinger we're going to get in the playoffs, like, sign me up. The guy made several incredible saves going laterally on one-timer plays for the Wild. So, sign me up. So, conversely, honestly, that's how I'm feeling. Like, that's where Dallas has the advantage in experience, in the goal. Ottinger's been there and done that. And while he can give up a bad goal, but he's not going to let it affect him in game, in series, in season. So yeah, Dallas is down 3-1, and then the Blackwell movement happens. He gets on the delayed penalty, he gets an awesome dangle in the slot. I think his shot kind of gets deflected, but kind of finds its way through Gustafsson, I think 5-hole. That cuts the lead to 3-2. His only 4th of the year, which is, he's been playing really well. And, you don't rely on Blackwell for scoring, but it's nice when he does, obviously. So, and then the long forgotten Hughes, 4th Hughes brother. No, Cameron Hughes. What a story Cameron Hughes is, right? To start playing professional hockey at the age of 20 and then to be 29 when you essentially make your NHL debut. Man, that's impressive. I was really excited for him. It's always exciting to see a first goal for a player that, he's going to remember that night for the rest of his life. I just love that for him. So, Blackwell nearly scored again on a 2-on-1 or whatever that was with Beck, and he dangles and hits it off the left post, and then get to the net. Hughes crashing the net, gets it. That was a big goal because like I said, early in the second, it's 3-1. You're not feeling very good, and then midway through the second, all of a sudden it's tied. So the Hartman goal to end the second, that was tough. slap pass from Spurgeon, but it was the zone entry by Hughes that was impressive because he just kind of wafts in there. People back off of him because of his speed. He cuts down the left side and then finds Spurgeon with a pretty long pass to the point. I mean, tape to tape, just so impressive. He's so good, Quinn Hughes. I can't get over how good he is, and it's so tough that he went to Minnesota. As soon as that trade happened, you knew that Minnesota was going to be much better, and which is why him alone. If you just tell me that trade didn't happen and Minnesota was still playing like this year, I would say Dallas in like 5 or 6, not 5. I'd say Dallas in 6, but then they get Hughes, and it's like immediately my head went to that's a 7-game series, right? And then if there's no Miro, geez, hate to look at it the other way, but man, what can you say about Quinn Hughes? He's just so impressive. But that was a gut punch to end the period. But then, look, I've been critical of the Stars' third periods this year, at least maybe the last like 20, 25 games. This was as good as you could hope for. 2 goals, you get back in it, get great saves from your goalie, continue to fight the good fight as Minnesota's chopping it up, and you're able to win the game. Like, what else could you ask for? Also, it's a funny anecdote. If I remember, I'll have to tell you guys late. But yeah, I mean, that Stars game time goal from Mikko Rantanen was really interesting because when you look at the replay, at least when I saw it in arena, it kind of did look like he kicked it. And I think most people felt that way. But then watching the replay back, I saw an overhead view of it. And I think I understand now why that was upheld is I think the puck hit before he could react with that sort of kicking motion. You do see that occasionally where the goal was upheld because I think the NHL truly realizes it's happening so fast that when you see that kicking motion, that's really just the brain, being late to, oh, this puck is on my foot and maybe I should try and direct it. He kind of angles his skate and then you kind of see it come off the ice as sort of a kicking motion. But I mean, they reviewed it in arena. And like I said, if you see that top down version, it seems pretty clear to me that it was directed first and then there's the kicking motion, but after the puck is already off his skate. So big goal regardless. And you got to shoot the puck. That's part of, Harley's impressive play, getting that point shot off. So, and then finally, Robertson gets his 42nd. Man, that was just awesome. It started with that Bork hit. He's been playing great. And then it gets over to Robertson. And man, I mean, great pass from Lindell, really patient. Lindell's going to have to step up with Miro, obviously, and then Robo's patient, allowing Gustafsson to almost overcommit, and he's got traffic in front of him. And then Robo just wires one far side. But then, man, find a way to find this replay because he shoots it right under McCarron's butt. And, what are you going to do if you're Gustafsson? You can't see that. It's coming through black pants. But, I mean, what a shot from Robo. And that's just a goal scorer's goal. He knows what part of the net he needs to put it in. And he obviously knew he needed to get it in between McCarron's legs. So, and I just love this Ellie. Robertson's just had such a great season. He's been taking all this flack, Olympics, the dumb rumor of trade for Kachuk and ho-hum. He's just got another 40-goal season. So just an incredible goal, and he loves playing against Minnesota. I think that's a good omen. He's scored in the last 2 games against Minnesota. Billy Gaines probably going to be having some nightmares about Robertson. That said, I've calmed down after that whole deal with Robertson because at the end of the day, USA won gold. And so obviously they did put together the right team. Still not sure whether or not the Trocheks of the world should have made it, but I mean, they needed that checking line to a certain extent. So, I mean, anyways, I digress. But, the Stars, they're down 4-3 with that gut punch goal to end the second. And then they find a way to win this game 5-4 in the biggest game of the season after they've lost their best player, after Minnesota has continued to, pull some dirty stuff. It's just such a massive win. I can't overstate this enough. I wouldn't say that normally regular season games would have any psychological effect, but I mean, if you ask me, Dallas has it. They got this one. I mean, they lost to the Wild in Minnesota 2-1. That was a close game, and obviously this one was too, but I think the way Dallas is doing it without the players that they have, you lose Miro and they outplay you in the third. Ouch. I think I tweeted out, I thought it was such a great comeback by the Stars, but simultaneously an absolutely disastrous collapse by the Wild, because you get that lead. The Wild had never lost in regulation when leading after 2 periods. So you're not going to see that often. Probably we'll see it just because it's playoffs, and that we'll see it on both sides in the playoffs where a team gives up a third period lead. But it just doesn't happen often. Obviously, really impressive. 3 stars for me is difficult. I had a hard time choosing this one. I think I got to go Blackwell. I thought he made it happen. I want to get I think Kaprizov with his 2 goals, and then man, there's a lot of people you could pick for this 3rd star. I think I agree. I think if it's coming, I think Robertson has to be. He had the game winner. That was just such a clutch goal. He's coming up clutch against Minnesota. And I mean, again, I can't stress this enough. Find that replay of Robertson's shot. It's just so awesome. And, frankly, borderline disrespectful to McCarron. So yeah, we'll go Robertson 3rd star. Yeah. They play the Rangers, who have been rebuilding for a long time, traded off a couple of their pieces. A little surprised that they didn't trade off a few others, but given that they still have, quality players on the team, I mean, yes, they're rebuilding, but I think this is more of like a retooling, so to speak. So, it's in Madison Square, the world's most famous arena, people. It's in Madison Square Garden, so that'll be fun. But I mean, needless to say, New York's had just a dreadful season. And a little known fact, though, Justin Dowling played for 2 games for them this year. But yeah, honestly, they've got Shesterkin. He's great. And as long as they have him, they'll be fine. Zibanejad is great. They traded Panarin, obviously. That was a big sign. Lafreniere is really great. Fox has had a down season, but still really well. Really great player. When he's on his game, he's a top player. But him not making the Olympic team was really interesting as well. So anyways, massive win for the Stars. Massive 4-point game. They lose Miro, but they win the clutch win and probably going to hold on for home ice. So Dallas gets a 5-4 win over Minnesota. Didn't need OT like Minnesota did previously, and that was important to not have to share that extra point. So what an exciting game, just filled with so many storylines and craziness. And I mean, watching like Hughes hug Rantanen like late in that game was just weird. Like, there's just so much going on there. There's so many craziness, and the penalties added to it. But look, a really, really impressive win for the Stars. Just so impressive, and I'm sure that's going to bode well for the playoffs. And I kind of feel like it doesn't really matter what happens these last 3 games. Like, that's what Dallas needed headed into the playoffs. So Dallas gets a 5-4 win over the Wild. At Patrick Haslip on Twitter. Dallas Hockey Hangout at gmail.com. If you have any comments or questions, love the engagement. Really appreciate the support. You guys have a great weekend.